Welcome, and I'm so glad you guys can be here. This is our second in a series of prototyping shorts that we're doing for the coalition. The first webinar in this series, I'll put the link in the chat, is recorded and up on YouTube. And the next webinar will be coming up next week on this. But today we are doing a webinar called Fast, Cheap, and People-Centered, and really excited to share that with you guys. You already know about the coalition, but for those of you who may be watching on YouTube who don't know about the coalition, the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience is a worldwide network of over 350 members in 65 different countries around the world. And our members are museums, historic sites, memory initiatives, places of memory that are committed to this idea that we need to tell the truth about the injustices of the past in order to engage visitors in a more just and humane future moving forward. Our members are committed to these 4 principles, which are interpreting history through sight. Sometimes that's a physical site, sometimes that's a virtual site. Engaging the public in dialogue on pressing social issues that are relevant to their site or their community. Inviting the public to take action on issues that are raised at their site, so that active form of participating and being a part of that more just future. And then working collectively to preserve memory, promote truth, and pursue justice, which is a big part of being part of a network, is being able to share with each other best practices and challenges that we face so that we can do this work together. Today, we wanted to start with a quick round of intros for the small group that is joining us, of your name, the organization that you work for. And we have this question of what helps get you inspired by new ideas? What are some ways that you kind of source inspiration? And I can start and then turn it over to y'all. But my name is Stacy Garcia. I work for the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience. I'm based in Santa Cruz, California. And I think traveling to new places or seeing new things that are unfamiliar to me always gets me really inspired with new ideas. I'll turn it over to Linda, and then we'll go to Cassie and then Jose.
Hi, everybody. I'm Linda Norris. I work with Stacy at Sites of Conscience. Like Stacy, I get inspired by travel. I'm currently in Helsinki, Finland. So that my current place of inspiration. I think something that's also inspiring to me in a different way is things that require teams, which in a way are kinds of communities, to work together. I'm fascinated by the Tour de France and F1. Those are weird things, and it seems unlikely I will ever ride a bike in the Tour de France or drive a car in F1. But that collaborative work together, that helps me think about new ideas to work together. So Cassie, I'm going to pass it to you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Cassie Chin, she, her pronouns, now with For Culture, which is up here in Washington State, King County's Heritage, Arts, Science, and Tech, and a funder. So excited to be here with you all. What helps get me inspired by new ideas is admittedly just hanging out with folks and asking them what's their story. I always get inspired by people's generous sharing of their journeys and their reflections on that. Yeah, and then it warms my heart, so that gets me going too. I'll pass it to Jose if possible.
Jose, are you there, able to share? All right. If you hop back on, we'll ask you to share your response. But we're going to go ahead and get to it because we have a lot to cover today.
But we've got one more person.
Oh, we do?
Maria?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Maria.
Maria, can you share?
Hi, my name is Maria. Sorry, my pronunciation is a little bad, but I am from Guatemala and I work for the Education Institute. And next week we were work in tolerance museum. So I need ideas to tell stories and order the ideas. So that sorry.
Thanks so much, Maria. And I'm so sorry that I didn't see that you had logged in, but welcome. And we're so glad that you can join us in this webinar. Thanks for being a part of it. So today what we're going to do is we're going to share a little bit more about how to design a prototype. In the first webinar, we really talked about what a prototype is, and a prototype is for everyone, and it helps us to solve problems that we don't know the answers to. But today we're going to actually talk through the process of thinking through the design of a prototype. We're also going to ask you all to participate in a prototype challenge. We have a very quick challenge for you all so you can practice this process together. And I'll turn it over to Linda to kick us off.
Thanks, Stacy. So the first step in a prototype challenge, and you're doing any kind of prototype, is to define your challenge as a question. How might we? This is the, excuse me, specific problem your prototype is attempting to solve. The Delaware Art Museum here designed a prototype that asked, how might we tell more inclusive stories in our permanent gallery? But they didn't just talk among themselves. They actually invited visitors. You can see those Post-it notes, the key tool of any prototype project, to share their feedback on draft labels in the exhibition. So they began to learn more about how they, what visitors are interested in. But you also want to define your outcomes. Visitors will do something. It's not what they'll do, but what you want them to think, know, or experience differently. Next slide. Cara Collective, who we've been working with on a couple of projects, has this really helpful, an evaluation firm, we should say, has this really helpful framing for outcomes, changes you'd like to see in participants' knowledge, understanding, attitude, beliefs, behavior, skills, or well-being. So there's all kinds of outcomes. Often exhibitions or museums focus on like some key piece of fact knowledge as an outcome, but there are all these different outcomes. And I think it's really important to think about all of them. Next slide, over to you, Stacy, I think.
Thanks, Linda. So after you really get clear and kind of defining your how might we question, the thing that you really want to prototype, the next step is to gather some inspiration, some ideas, get inspired to think more creatively about this how might we question and possible solutions. We really encourage you to brainstorm as many ideas as possible to answer this question. The more you invite people into that process of brainstorming, the more wild ideas that you have, the better. And I like to say that you're not done brainstorming until you have 5 really, really bad ideas that you have brainstormed. So please have a yes and philosophy and get to some of those bad ideas too. And then after you've brainstormed a bunch of different ideas, you're going to refine your ideas. So do kind of a reality feasibility check. Is this going to work? And finalize one specific idea to prototype. This is a photo from the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. We were changing our tours from a very didactic school tour to a very participatory school tour. So we spent the summer imagining some ideas of like, how might we make our tours more participatory? How might we empower students to be community builders through this tour? And we actually did some brainstorming with youth and teachers around what this tour should look like, which was really helpful in imagining a prototype, and then spent the summer prototyping different formats of school tours with summer camps and school groups before we settled on one final idea to launch in the fall. Linda.
Next slide. Then you're going to actually do it. You're going to identify what you're most uncertain about, and you want to make it simple, scrappy, and cheap. And you want to test it out with the people it's for. This is a photo from the Rosenbach Library and Museum in Philadelphia. And the Rosenbach Library is a library, not surprising in its name, of historic manuscripts. And there was this weird, they wanted visitors to get more involved. It seems a little dry. They wanted people to get more involved. And there was this weird dead space as you entered the first floor of a Philadelphia row house. Because when you entered, it felt like going to the dentist. There was a screen and someone behind a counter. Felt like my dentist at any rate. And we thought we wanted people to just be more engaged with books. So the educator and I talked about it. I went home and I got this texted picture a couple weeks later. She thought she could create a reading space. She wanted to prototype it as a way of convincing her director. That's an important part of prototyping. So she scrounged around. She took chairs from people's offices. She brought a lamp from home, and she just put out books because the library is about books. They want people to be involved in books. And this is, I think, mostly a family group, although not exclusively, who instantly knew what this new space was for. They had prototyped it with no money to create a space where people wanted to explore more. So you can do it with anything. Next slide, Stacy.
All right. So one of the best ways to learn about a new process is to try it out and do it. So that's what we're going to do today. We have a rapid prototyping challenge for the small group of us today to think through and walk through this process of defining our challenge, imagining possibilities, and then actually creating a prototype. And we're going to do this all together since we have a small group today. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to choose one challenge that we want to focus on. And Linda and I came up with two possible challenges that we could do remotely in this situation, which is how might we make all the people in this webinar laugh? Or how might we physically connect everyone in this webinar? So we're going to choose a challenge first in this process. Does anyone have any strong opinions about what challenge we should choose? Or any preference around one that you don't want to do?
How about the second one? How might we physically connect everyone in this webinar?
A very tough one. That sounds great. Why don't we do that challenge? So if we are choosing this challenge of how might we physically connect everyone in this webinar, what are we hoping will be different for the people that this impacts? So for us, so what are we hoping will be different in thinking about outcomes in terms of what we might feel or think or experience or do differently? What might be some of the outcomes if we're able to physically connect everyone?
Maybe I heard Maria's just coming to working with like sites and wanting to feel a sense of connection to other folks working in kind of this area and field.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something Maria shared at the very beginning. And if we were able to physically connect, we might feel that sense of a stronger connection with the work that we're doing in our everyday lives. Maria or Jose, any other ideas?
I think that we practice some exercise that we could see.
Yeah.
It was connect. Sorry, like virtual.
Yeah, some kind of like physical exercise that we all do. You're getting to that imagining part of our session, which is great. We can all go ahead and jump to that, which is about thinking about ideas that could address this challenge of how might we physically connect everyone in this webinar. It seems like you're suggesting like some kind of visual representation of that or some kind of physical movement to connect. Any other ideas for how we could creatively address this challenge of how might we physically connect everyone in this webinar?
So I had one, if I can weigh in. And it is because I was in a museum today and I bought postcards, which is a usual thing. Writing a postcard and getting a physical piece of mail is a physical connection. So I kind of think about sending, that everybody got postcards, which then made me think about whether everyone in the coalition could become postcard buddies with each other and send postcards, which seems really complicated, but you never know.
Yeah, sending postcards or something through the mail would be a physical connection. Any other ideas?
I don't know if it qualifies as physically, but I was thinking like some type of show and tell of an object that people have nearby at their desk or wherever they're at right now.
Yeah, some kind of show and tell of the object, absolutely. And I like ideas that Maria shared around movement. And I was thinking of like, oh, well, we can actually just touch the screen in front of us. Maybe that's a physical connection. Um, any other ideas that feel maybe a little bit off the wall or would be really unusual to physically connect everyone in this webinar?
Well, building off Maria's, I think, Maria, I think this might have been where you're going. And if not, I'm sorry, I just went somewhere else. That literally, if we did something that we can see somehow links us, right? So that the exercise is almost passing from one thing to another. So yeah, maybe that would work. I thought this week I was in the Baltics this week, and they, as the Soviet Union dissolved and they, right before they became independent, there was a chain of people who went out on the street that stretched across all three Baltic countries to show their unity and commitment to independence. And that kind of physical chain connection, and maybe we just have to do it like virtually somehow, but that you feel somehow connected. But I also, in Cassie's, building on Cassie's thing, I think about using all our senses. Like, would be physically connected if we all listened to the same music or smelled the same thing? I don't know. That to use more. So to circle back to outcomes, I think somehow the outcome is to figure out how to break the Zoom screen, right? That is everything we know now.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Linda. Yeah, I was thinking about if we all stepped outside and looked up at the sky or shared something out loud, that could be a way to feel that connection beyond the screen. Let's hone in on one idea that we want to make a very, very quick prototype for. Anyone want to suggest one idea that either you shared or somebody else shared that you think, oh, let's do a scrappy version of this? Or a new idea that has popped up that you really want to prototype?
Cassie, you gave us a hard challenge.
I know.
I like, maybe we can prototype that last one, kind of. Linda, I mean, curious if people are nearby a window or outside or have some type of nature by them, then we could describe what that is. And maybe that's a point of connection of us, physically being present in different places, but around the world, something like that.
Oh, I love that, Cassie. Just looking outside your window and describing something that's natural that you see as a point of connection. That sounds wonderful. Um, great. Should we go ahead and try that and see how that works?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay, thanks, Cassie.
There's a tree outside of my window that's changing colors. So it was green and now it has yellow and some red leaves, and the wind is just slightly moving through the branches.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Cassie. Maria, do you want to look out your window or nearby to see any kind of natural object and describe that to us? Anything in nature?
Out of my window, it's a sunny day. There was a 5 trees and 2 dogs running on the garden. On my garden.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Maria, for sharing that. Linda, do you want to go?
Sure. So I'm in Helsinki, so it's 6:30 at night. So it's getting darker, and the window in my Airbnb looks out on a courtyard of buildings that used to probably be something else, but is now a parking lot for all the cars of people who live in this building. And so when I was out earlier today, it's really it feels like November here, not October. November to me, that kind of gray and kind of raw feel. But the trees here also, I do not feel connected to sunny Guatemala. I'm afraid quite so much. But Cassie, the trees changing, that's the same here. Although I picked up yesterday a chestnut because they don't exist anymore in the US, but when I was a kid, finding shiny chestnuts were the best thing. So that's all my outdoor.
It's wonderful, Linda. And I can share briefly too, that touches on like things that everybody has shared, but yeah, the seasons are changing, but we are experiencing a unexpected heat wave in the middle in October, which burned our fern, which is sitting on the porch. So we unfortunately have a burnt fern, and a lot of the leaves are turning yellow right now, which is nice to see that change in the season. And there's a couple of wild birds that are out. I live in the mountains, so we have lots of birds that are flying around right now. Yeah. Well, I wonder, did that help us feel connected to each other in any way by sharing that?
I appreciate it. A little bit of imagination, but brought back just feelings of being outside in different places, and definitely helped me break the Zoom world. So took me out of that. Appreciate that. And wishing for warm sun. That was nice. A gift from Maria for all of us.
Yeah, agreed. It helped to kind of imagine where each of you are at and visualize that and feel like I could connect to at least, beyond the screen, some of the things that you're seeing outside of your window, which was really nice. Right. Well, thank you for doing a very quick prototype with us. We wanted to walk you through that process of defining that question, imagining some possibilities, and then just trying something out and seeing how people respond to that and thinking about if that's effective or what you might do differently based on what you learned from the prototype. And Linda, I'll turn it over to you for this last portion.
Sure, we've gone pretty quick. Any questions? We're not such a big group, but any other questions about this process of prototyping along the way? And if not, next slide. A reminder, we've got one more prototyping webinar short coming up. And these are always, by the way, we put them up in a day or two on our YouTube channel, so you can watch them or share them with people. Observation and learning, which is really about, seeing what people do with your prototypes and then taking actions based on what you learned, is next week, October 15th, same time. So we hope you'll join us then. But also, next slide. We've got more learning opportunities coming up, both online and in person. Virtual trainings, co-creating with communities in later October, and dialogue and difficult times in February are both kind of more expanded learning opportunities. There is the fee for them, unlike these, to really dive in much deeper about the topics. And then our first open seat in-person training is November 18th and 19th at Pier 21, our wonderful member in Nova Scotia, Canada. So these are really wonderful opportunities to dive deeper into the change work that you all want to do. So please check them out. There's information on our website. And as always, be in touch with Stacy and I if you have questions. And next slide. Here's where you find us. We're pretty easy to find. And also don't hesitate to engage with the coalition on X, on Instagram, and on Facebook. We love to hear about it. And this QR code is a form to fill out a survey, which really helps us think about how to make our webinars and our training learning opportunities better. And that, I think, is it, unless anyone has any additional questions. Or Stacy, do you have anything to add?
No, just thank you guys for joining us and doing a quick session around prototyping, and we hope you try out some of these techniques at your organization.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.